There's 350,000 people that play Overwatch in our home market area. So if all of them convert to fuel fans and all of them want to come to our home games, our facility will be really large. So we just hope that happens. We hope we have to build the first 350,000 seat stadium. Can you imagine the lines to the restroom at that stadium?
I cannot at all. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Queue Up, Team Envy's official podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we take you inside the world of esports and gaming, the people who know it best.
Hey guys, I'm Justin Rojas, and we post the video version of this podcast every Wednesday on youtube.com/teamenvy and the audio version every Monday.
Right on. We got a special guest today. We got the president. Can we just call you Mr. President?
The president.
All episode?
For Calvin Coolidge Jr.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's good.
I'm just gonna call
Mr. Geoff Moore.
From now on now.
I'm going to call you Master Chief Operator. Wait, what does COO stand for?
Operating Officer?
Operating Officer.
Or Operations Officer.
Master Chief Operations Operator.
Officer.
Yeah, let's go with that. Geoff Moore. Geoff Moore, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good. Recovering still.
Yeah.
Homestand Weekend. Excuse me. Bud Light Homestand Dallas.
Homestand Weekend Dallas. Bud Light's Homestand Weekend Dallas. April 27th through 28th.
You got it down. This guy just kept adding sponsors, so like the name just got longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, well, we did Dead Sea Scroll version of the script. Hey, we need that money.
Yeah, that recap's been brutal, trying to get all the thank yous out. Yeah. And it's literally a laundry list of just people to thank.
13 we counted. We counted 13, I think, sponsors on that press release.
Yep. That's without thanking like casters in the league.
May the Lord bless us. I wish we had 15.
Okay.
So Geoff, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you started, when you joined the team. You've been behind the scenes orchestrating a lot of this stuff, but a lot of our fans might not know you personally. And let's hear it.
So I started in Dallas in 1990. Was with the Dallas International Sports Commission. It was my first job out of college. Our last project was moving the Minnesota North Stars to Dallas. So I became the first ever employee of the Dallas Stars at about 3 a.m. in the Adolphus billiards room over about 4 cases of beer. So we won't talk about that. I thought they were joking. Bud Light,
right? So
probably there were some Bud Lights in there. And I thought they were joking. I didn't think they were serious about hiring me. So I just left. And then the next day, the owner took me to lunch and basically in front of about 25 news cameras said, "So you're the first employee." And I just started sweating because I realized they were serious at that point. So worked for the Stars for 18 years.
And how old were you at that time?
I was probably 23.
Wow.
And at that time with the Dallas Stars, I was probably the 5th oldest employee they had. So they had, or I was probably 6th. They had a couple guys from the Red Wings, a couple guys from the Penguins, and then a bunch of young people. So it was a kind of a wild time for us, a great time. Worked there for 18 years and left there as the executive vice president of sales and marketing. Went to Austin, where we opened up Circuit of the Americas, where you have F1 and MotoGP with the Summer X Games a couple of times. So Mike Ruffell came down there a couple of times. I didn't meet him then, but he was at our place. And then came back up here, and I was working as a partner in a consulting firm on new sports facilities. So the project I worked on mainly was the new ballpark in Arlington. It's going to be opening up here in probably 2020 called Globe Life Field. And my job was to help make sure that the design of the buildings created as much revenue as possible for the teams. And essentially the way you do that is to figure out all the best ways to entice the fans to enjoy the experiences they're having. And so then I got a call to come meet with Ken Hirsch's group and Mike Ruffell about esports. And it took about 1 5-hour conversation to fall in love with the idea. Got hired a couple weeks later, and the rest is history. So I got here last July, and I feel like it's been kind of a pretty quick pace since then.
What was your knowledge of esports prior to that conversation?
I wouldn't say it was zero, but it didn't have too many digits in it. 15 years before, my brother-in-law, who had worked for Mark Cuban, and when they sold broadcast.com, he said, "Hey, you should quit your job and we should go into this esports thing." And
Hell yeah.
And it was that was like 15, 16 years ago. And I was like, no, we're not quitting our job and doing that. So I knew it existed, and I'd been kind of, seeing things about it percolate up through the traditional sports media during that time. I've got 4 kids, so I know that, the way they view sports and entertainment is very different than my generation. My wife worked for the NBA, worked for the Dallas Mavericks, worked for the Stars. I've been in sports all my life. We have 4 kids who all have played or currently play traditional sports, and not one of them has ever watched a second of live traditional sports on television. Because that's just not what they do. So I felt like I knew a little bit about it, but when I got into the in-depth discussions about the particulars of Team Envy, the games that we're in, things like that, it was just kind of mind-blowing.
Do your kids help you with your job, you think? Because they're like tuned into what's hot and what's popping right now.
Sure.
So do you like take cues from them? You're like, oh, okay.
Well,
you like that? Okay.
Not so much. They're more into. They hate it when I say this, by the way. So which makes me say it. So
put them on blast.
A tip because is they like. I always call them the K-boppers because they love Korean pop music, right? And they love the boy bands and things like that. So they're more into streamers and that sort of thing. I brought them to Homestand Weekend, and it took probably 3 minutes, and then they're like, "Oh, we have to kill Houston tomorrow." I'm like, "You've been literally, you've seen Overwatch for 3 minutes. You heard one promo, and now you're getting ready to pick up the axe and have your tribe fight Houston, and you're in." And my 13-year-old, one of my twins, looked at me and goes, "Oh yeah, we have to kill Houston," and I was like.
Man,
wow.
It felt like WrestleMania down on that floor. I was looking around. Yeah, get him.
It did. It escalated quickly. It's like that Anchorman fight, people,
knives and
we had tridents and things, and people like, oh, Brick killed a guy. We weren't ready for that. But it escalated so quickly that it was a little. And I was in the suite, and I didn't know exactly what was going on because it moved so fast, but I was pretty hyped up, and I was pretty ready to kill. So I was loving it. It was like, kind of playoff hockey intense because the game goes so fast. There's so many inputs. There's so much stimulus. It's really incredible.
I mean, it was an amazing weekend overall, not just from the game standpoint, and the Dallasville guys crushed it. We won both our games. Awesome. But it was a festival atmosphere. It wasn't just watching a game, right? There was so much going on in and around the event center. That really added to the vibe, I think.
Yeah, I think that's been a developing trend in live events really over the last 25 years. It used to be that your home opener and your playoff games got that special attention. And one of the reasons why is the facilities there back in that day were so limited, just things like being able to store things, having concourse width, having any amenity whatsoever. The facilities were so bare bones that it was hard to do it. So on your home opener and playoff games, you would truck in all this extra experience. You'd widen out, you get the bicycle barricade and create kind of extra area on your plaza. And then you would add those things. And then as people built new facilities, they just built all that amenity into it. And so now before every single Mavs game, every single Stars game, we can look down from our office and we can see essentially the festival that's happening here on the plaza before, each game, each regular season game, each preseason game, right? And one of the reasons is because those sports have gone from being very targeted to hardcore basketball and hockey fans to being very wide towards just entertaining every breathing human who arrives, right? And so the widening of that audience has been great for the economics of those teams. Their fan bases have grown tremendously, and you see what's happened to the worldwide value of the franchises. When people buy an NBA team for $2 billion, they're not buying the Houston team for $2 billion. They're buying the Houston team and its worldwide potential audience for $2 billion. And so, but one of the tricks is that you grow your global audience by having a very engaged local audience, right? So when people, I've got, my wife's family who watches, Overwatch streams our games. They were Fuel fans before I took this job.
Nice.
And so they were watching the streams in South Carolina. And they're saying it was unbelievable. Like you could just feel the energy coming through the stream. And even in non-related businesses like online distance education, if your university has a real university, then the energy of that will increase your online enrollment. And it's because people really want to feel connected to that energy. So if you just have like a purely cloud-based university, your enrollment won't be as good as one that really has a real university and then plugs people in a distance into that. So the same thing is really true for our events and why we have this live event strategy that, not coincidentally, both of you are very, very engaged in and important too, because it really, that brand center and that studio audience radiates through the stream and increases our global audience.
Let's talk a little bit about what everyone's roles were for this event. I think a lot of people who are watching this or listening to it may not be aware that, yes, we do this podcast. This is not our main job. As awesome as it would be, this is all we had to do. This is by far not.
Be fun times. Yeah.
Jay got the luxury of being able to host this.
Good word usage. Yeah.
And then translating that to live events. If you guys didn't know, Jay, was brought onto the team to be kind of a community manager, to take the role of being online and interacting with our audience on Twitter, on our Discord, et cetera, et cetera. And
the people's champ.
The people's champ. And then we're translating that to, first, this kind of podcast right here as a speaking voice and talking head for the company. But now we transition to our first home game and having him run around, literally, physically run around.
Sprinting at times.
The arena,
Yep.
hosting on camera, doing all the in arena activations with the t-shirt cannons.
The Bud Knight. Being the Bud Knight's escort. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that, Jay. What happened?
Woo! It was fun. I'll start by saying it was an honor to be given that title as a in-arena MC, I guess is the official title. What do you call that? PA?
Yeah, I think you're really more the event host.
Event host. Yeah. I like that. Let's go with that. But yes, it was a fully loaded production. Lots of things to shout out. Lots of sponsors to engage with. Lots of live segments. So it was quickly learning. I had about probably 3 days to learn scripts and be able to say, okay, I'm here at this time. I need to have this giveaway. The Bud Knight needs to be on my left. I need to hand them this. I need to say these things. And we have 30 seconds to do it. Go. And rinse and repeat probably over the weekend at least 40 times probably. And so there were times where I had the little earpiece thing in that makes you look like a secret agent. And so I got my producer talking to me. You got the crowd noise. You have the casters talking. And then you have, it's a little different than being on stage and projecting outwards because the sound's coming back at you. So there was I could hear myself talking over myself. And that is one of the most crazy things to try to talk over because you start slowing your speech because you're listening to yourself. So it was a challenge. All in all, it was a lot of fun. I hope I did a decent job. I hope you all had fun who attended because it was a blast for me. I'd do it again. Next week.
Don't worry, we got all next year.
We got some time? Okay.
Well, it's really an important job because, in that role, you are the animated, you're the animate physical representation of our brand and our team, right? And so a lot of times, when you go to a sports event and you have a problem or whatever, you don't know who to talk to, and it seems like, is there really a there when it comes to the team? Are there people there? Do they care about me? How does this work? And so you have those customer service portions of it, but also the team wants to have a physical brand representation of itself to the fans. And so thank you.
I'm glad I get to be that, man. I met so many fans. People stop me, want to take pictures. I'm like, the players are over there, dude. Like, no, I want a picture with you, Jay. I was like, cool. Let's do it.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Your role was a little kind of higher on the scale, I guess you can put. You're looking at things that I wasn't even looking at.
We're happening.
Yeah, we're aware that we're happening. Absolutely.
Well, when I, so my role was essentially to interact with the league to, help, Mike Ruffell and I interacted with the league to help essentially acquire the event. And then once we did and kind of roughed out the league takes care of the broadcast, the team will take care of all the rest of the event. Then there was things just like, okay, where are we going to play? So what date are we going to play? So what are all the venue availabilities? What are the economic deals that we negotiate? How do we decide how we're going to do merchandising? How are we going to organize sponsorship sales? And so there's just a lot of details. How are we going to, select an event name? How are we going to publicize it? How are we going to organize the announcements? What's the ticketing system? What are the ticket prices? What are the ticket products? All those different things. And so the first question when you start delegating some of that stuff is people say, well, what's my budget for that? Justin's very good at that. So what's my budget?
Smart man.
And then the answer is this has never been done before in the history of the world in esports. So there's no existing template or amount to the budgets. So we're going to have to work this out together, right? Which makes it much more difficult on the person you're delegating it to because, you're in this creation phase more than just organizing phase, right? Mm-hmm. And so Justin's job essentially as our vice president of social and events is to do all the detailed planning, organizing, and creating of the event. So all the fan activations we had, interacting with all the different sponsors along with Stephanie. It's a huge role, and the lack of definition or precedent made it very difficult for Justin. And so part of my job...
not that difficult.
Right. Well, thank God we have a trained expert in the field. But all the previous things we'd done, I was about to say little things, all the previous things like watch parties, player meet and greets, meeting the team, all those things were kind of just leading up to this,
preparation,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then all the experiences the two of you had, like when I saw you do the watch party in February, that's when I knew that you could do this. This is just a bigger scale, but you had essentially done small parts of all of it, and your kind of extemporaneous personality really worked in that environment, and that's when I knew that you could do this. And so anyway, so part of my job was just the kind of organization and kind of deciding, it was projecting what our revenues were going to be, because it was important to throw a great event, have a great experience for the fans, and make money. Because this is a business, and we have to show that this is a business that has a path to profitability in the future.
Amen.
So it was just kind of just balancing all those different things, and there's certain things, that would say, hey, okay, well, we need these fan experience and entertainment elements, and so Justin and you guys would get together, come back with a list of 15 things, and say, this is about $30,000, this is $40,000, this is $10,000, this is $5,000, and we can do all those things. And it was just kind of sitting in a room with you guys and saying, okay, well, I don't know where we're going to end up yet, so we can't afford that. But let's do these three things and lock those in, and the rest of them will be kind of to be decided as we figure out how the budget is looking, right?
Sure.
And so I think in the end, it's weird. Like the further away from the event, the more work I had to do, and then as it gets closer and closer, then everything else just has already been handed off to the experts, and then you and Justin and Corey and Stephanie and Ryan and everyone else, Shay, that's where during the actual event, I didn't really have anything to do.
Sit back and enjoy it.
Yes,
that's great.
Yes, which is why our beer per caps are so high.
One of the cool things I noticed, though, is your attention to detail, and you've seen events done at such a high level. You were keying in on things that were super fan-centric, like the smells when you walk in. You talked about having you go to a baseball game or a hockey game, and there you can smell the peanuts as you walk in the door, and that can be one of the strongest memories you have. So you want to go back, you want to experience that again. Right. Like those kind of things is invaluable. It's stuff that I would never even begin to think about.
Well, you will
unknown unknowns.
You will after you've done 1,000 of them.
Yeah,
right. Like when you go to the current ballpark the Rangers play in, they have in the concourse they have a hot dog grilling area. As you come in the main entrance and turn to your left, and they do grilled onions with the hot dogs at that stand. And if you look at the economics of that stand by itself, it's okay, but they wouldn't have gone to the trouble of kind of creating that stand and doing it there just for the economics of that individual stand. It's the grilling of the onions that makes all the difference there, because it's such a great smell. It's a marketing expense, right? The sound of it, the whole thing, and what it does is you're competing with people's comfortable living rooms for entertainment. And so when you're doing things and playing things for your event, one of the questions you should ask yourself is this different and better than their living room, right? Mm-hmm. And so the odds of like, there's a comedian that talks about when you go to a restaurant and you ask for ice water, iced tea, and you ask for a lemon slice in it. And he's like, why are you addicted to that at a restaurant when you haven't sliced a lemon at your apartment or house in 15 years and put it in your iced tea? Right?
Never thought about that.
But the answer is because you're not going to go through that trouble at home, but when you go to a restaurant, it's someone else's job to do it, then you want it, right? And so that's what the grilling onions is at the ballpark and the concourse. So that's what at the Stars, when you push the roasted candy kiosks to each corner so that when they enter in the main entry, they'll smell that, right? Mm-hmm. And because you want that smell associated with their memory and you want to have a positive memory, then also you want to raise their expectations as they're walking into the event. Because if people expect to have a good time, then they'll have a better time. And if they don't expect that, then they won't. Mm-hmm. And so even the Jack in the Box exterior and T-Mobile exterior sponsorship activations, they help, they matter, right? Because when people come up, they see the colors, they see the effort, they see the stuff. Even if they don't get in the line and get their picture taken in the Jack in the Box activation, which was really cool, they see other people doing it, and it increases how they feel of the experience that they're having. Mm-hmm. They feel like they're having a better time, even if they're not physically doing it. And so I think that's why the effort that everyone put in was really worth it.
Is there anything you had your heart set on for the event that just didn't work out, whether it be just resources, budget? Like I wanted a fire breather straight up. I wanted a dude with a glow stick in his mouth that could just blow out blue fire. Obviously, that's not the safest thing in the world. We did get some pyro though. Astro got us some fire, man. So
he did.
I was happy
that was very important to Mike. I mean, when the email came out from the league to all the 12 original teams asking who wanted to bid on doing a rivalry weekend, as it was first called, Mike had called me. I had not even read the email yet. Called me, said, "We're in. We're doing it." I had to back down and say, "What is it that we're doing again?" And he goes, "We're going to do this," and he was all over it. And I think he mentioned the pyro in maybe the first call. We're going to do this. It's going to be incredible. We're going to be the first ever, and we're going to have pyro. On our player intros.
Flame.
I mean, he was.
We were on the same page. Yeah.
So if there was anything, if any of you went to the event and liked something that happened, it was probably Mike's idea, because he has been going to events all over the world for years, and he's been kind of just storing little pieces away of things he liked that other people did. The overstuffed chairs on the floor in the VIP section, that was Mike.
Karma Fields
was Mike. The pyrotechnic that did not kill any of our players was Mike. Thank God.
The power outage, Mike.
Well, no. I mean, sure, he licked his finger and stuck it in a socket, but that was not actually what caused it. But
let's clarify right now, since we hit it, that topic. Let's talk about what really caused the power outage.
Well, I'm told that there was an automobile accident that ran into a piece of electrical equipment, and then as the substation switched over, that 2-second glitch in power delivery is what made all the kind of the arena kind of lose power for a second, and then the Overwatch,
not just the arena. Let me clarify.
Yeah, it was part of the city.
Yeah,
and then all the Overwatch servers kind of had to be reset and resynchronized, and then by later that day they had a really, really kick-ass uninterrupted power source protection, as they will from now on. So
nice.
So it's the very reason these events were done or created was to get out in the field and test all these things, and so that was something that happened at the Super Bowl, happens different things. So it wasn't the power usage of the arena, because a minor league hockey game uses more power than our event did. It was just a fluky thing, and then thanks to you guys, we got through it. The fans enjoyed the break.
That might have been one of the most entertaining parts of the weekend, to be honest, with the audience and the crowd and the energy.
People love being on the Jumbotron, man. I don't know what it is about that. There should be a psychology paper about it, but you see yourself on the screen, you just want to wave, hey, do a little Fortnite dance or whatever.
Well, I think they were also excited to be there, and it was so early in the event that they loved the video board allows them to connect with other people that care very deeply about the same thing they care about. So when they would show the person with the seagull jersey, then everyone who likes him as a player went crazy. They showed different people signs. Like you guys really orchestrated, a really good extemporaneous 45-minute segment that really worked perfectly.
Some crowd favorites. They had Queen playing. They had YMCA.
YMCA went
So
on,
interactive songs, man. That dude saved it with the playlist.
Well, I liken it to going to a magic show or an acrobatic show. You go and you expect a really great performance, but you're really going to see what goes wrong. And I think that's when the crowd gets most hyped because they're part of this real experience. That's what makes it feel live, is when things unexpectedly happen. And that's, you can use those moments to really channel people's energy. Like when the guy on the tightrope almost falls off.
He buckles. Oh.
Yeah, like that's everyone. That's when you're like adrenaline.
You're like,
goes, and that's kind of our equivalent of that.
Yeah. And we responded in true form, man. It was great. The crowd was super patient. We were down for probably 25, 30 minutes? Something like
40.
that. 40?
Yeah.
40.
Man.
But somehow we ended up ending on time, which was amazing to me. And thanks to all the 4-0s and the quick games.
Yeah.
But I was afraid because I had all this stuff planned at the end. We had the autograph sessions and everything happening right after. I was like, okay, we had this 40-minute delay. We need to push everything estimated time to 40 minutes later. And then we do quickly revert that because we were in the middle of the fuel game. We're like, oh man, we're going to finish this actually on time. Let's change all the plans we changed back to the original plans and let's keep everything moving.
Well, there's I don't remember who said it. It might have been Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he said plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, right? Because like you just said, there's always going to be something that changes. So you can't just say, well, we're going to do this and here's our plan. Everyone stick to the plan, because there's going to be so many things that change that the plan fairly quickly becomes not that relevant, right? But you have to spend the hours and days and weeks planning it, because in the process of doing that, all the different options come up, right? And you also have to force rank what's the most important and do things like that. And so Corey Dunn, who did a great job both in helping us prepare for the event in advance, and then we hired as the game producer, he spent 100 hours that week before the event started, organizing things and diving deep into all the sponsorship fulfillment and the game entertainment elements, talking to the DJ about the playlist and what was available and what we would do. And then that preparation took the plan that he created that got thrown out the window fairly quickly in the event, and allowed him to then still be in control as he was audibling through the rest of the event.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the true test of an event is again, not for it to go according to plan, but for it to seem like it did to the audience.
That's right.
And I'm sure, there's a lot of you guys that were watching, and we're doing a lot of scrambling on the back end, but it ended up being not necessarily seamless because of the power outage, but
organized chaos is how I put it.
It's always fun.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what's going on behind the curtain, as long as the audience is having a good time, and we got A+ reviews. So
yeah.
On your report card though, you're the president. You're Mr. President. What'd you think? Just from a 50, or what do you call it, 500-foot view?
300,000, 30,000, 30,000.
That one.
Yeah, from 300,000 feet, I couldn't see it. Yeah. But I would, I'd say it's a little bit like, when you're a parent and you go on vacation with your kids. Not all the things are gonna go perfectly. The travel, whatever. But at the end, if you look at your kids and they were ecstatically happy at what happened, then you're happy, right? And so we go through our detailed debrief in 2 days from now, and then we'll go through one with the league later this week. So there'll be a lot of kind of notes that we write, and there'll be feedback we get from post-event surveys from fans. Like one of the fans who was sitting on the front row said it would have been nice to know that there was pyro and smoke that was going to happen, because they have an issue with that. And that's a great point, right? There should just be, it's like bringing people to your home for a party, and you want to interact with all of them, right? And so there are things like, hey, can you walk upstairs, or do the candles make you sick, or are you allergic to my cat, or whatever. You want to have conversations with people and kind of give them an expectation of what's going to happen. And then if they have any issues, you're able to address them in a very personal manner. So there's things we're going to learn. I would say overall, the fans left and they were ecstatic. It was, almost like a religious experience, except Most religious experiences don't last 7 hours a day for 2 days in a row. So I would say it was fantastic. And part of it is that it, like Justin, like you're saying, it doesn't matter if everything was perfect or seamless or whatever. It matters to people that everything is kind of organized, well thought out, and a high quality event, and that they feel like, they're getting what they paid for. And it's hard to say sometimes with live esports events what the expectation of the fan is, because for a lot of people it's their first one ever, so they don't know what to expect. But we had a local sports radio kind of influencer that's 2 sons, 8 and 14, and he did 24 minutes of segments on the ticket the day afterwards. And it was just him walking through, not having any idea what he was getting himself into, but his 8 and 14-year-old sons were ecstatic to go. And here's a guy that can go to every sports event that occurs in the Metroplex, and his sons never want to go, right? Because it's just not what they're into. But when he mentioned this, they were in disbelief that it was even possible that this was happening, that they could go. And so he said, when I walked in, I didn't know if we were going to be standing behind a card table watching someone play a video game on a table, or what happened, but he goes, I left and my mind was completely blown. And he goes, and I was, he was there for our 3rd and 4th matches of Sunday. And he said at the end of it, I wanted to, kill Houston, because I totally bought in. And he said, I'm a P1 of the Dallas Fuel now, and so are my sons, and we're buying jerseys. And,
that's what I'm talking about.
And
that's what it's all about.
We're going to make this happen. And so for them, whether some little thing didn't happen perfectly, it wasn't the point. It was whether the overall event connected with them on some level in an exciting way that was very entertaining to them. And I think it did for just about everybody.
And you got to believe that the league was happy about it. We actually talked to one of the producers from the league at a bar afterwards, and he voiced to us one of the things that he loved about the event was, he said it felt like a hockey game. He said the in-between time.
Not just a regular hockey game, like a playoff hockey game.
Playoff hockey game. There you go.
Yeah.
But just with the crowd interaction and the t-shirt cannons and the chants back and forth and just all of this like atmosphere that we created.
Arguably also, and I'm not going to say who said this, but that it was better than the grand finals last year.
Ooh.
So, and I heard that from a Blizzard person. I would not name names, but
I didn't go. Womp womp. You guys went, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, and I think the size of the venue was great. The crowd was great, but like all the work that we and many other people here did, all helped. But really, it's the fans and what they brought to the event, the energy, the excitement. That's really what made it. And I'll go a step further. The Houston fans on Sunday. The amount of fans from Houston, the way they represented, how vocal they were. Their team has not been playing well this year so far, but that did not get in the way of their support of their team, and their team played very well in that match. And it really made it more like kind of the OU Texas football game at the Cotton Bowl, where half the crowd is OU, half is Texas. And on every single play, one group's cheering and the other group's groaning.
I like that you said OU Texas and not Texas OU. Here we say Texas OU. I'm just gonna.
That's right. Well, growing up in Oklahoma, I gave myself away there. I outed myself as being a former OU football fan. But that's what it reminded me of, is that it was just every single play every fight that was happening in the game was getting this really incredible reaction from both sides. And then when in the broadcast, they then do the fan slide in reaction shots, which I thought was really cool. I had not seen that before in Overwatch broadcasts. And so I thought that was really cool. And it would just, every play you'd see someone, raising their hands, then someone else doing the surrender cobra, out of stress. And it was just
suspenseful.
It was great. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, big credit to the teams that played, because they were actually like exciting games to watch, which isn't always the case. Yeah. I think that, everything that happened, it was the best we could have asked for that weekend. Right. Mm-hmm. Man, props to the next teams that are going to have to host this, because they've got a lot to live up to now.
Let's do it, Atlanta. We want it to be bigger, right?
Yeah. Want
Yeah.
to always get bigger.
All of them. One of the things that the fans talked about immediately after the event was that's not super familiar to esports is booing. And that's something that definitely occurred on multiple occasions, especially in that last game there. And that's just something that exists in traditional sports. It's not necessarily bad manners, but yeah, there was definitely some debate and talk online about should we be booing in esports. And I feel like
traditional sports size. I don't know.
That's the value of home field advantage. I think it was our homestand. We had home field advantage. You're gonna get booed. Sorry, Outlaws. If you come back, it's gonna happen again. So yeah, I'm cool with it. I let it ride.
Well, I think the thing, like I went and met all the Outlaw players after the game because they were doing an autograph session that was set up for post game. And it's never fun to do a press conference or autograph sessions and do fan meet and greets after you lose. Mm-hmm. But I just went and thanked all of them for being a part of history for the weekend. And I think all of them were, were just like, hey, it was great. It was a lot of energy, a lot of fun. They had a lot of fans there. So it was good for them too. And I think as long as all the kind of reactions are kind of honest, emotional reactions, then I think, these guys are elite athletes, and they're paving the way for the future elite athletes of esports. And so when it comes to how travel is going to impact, esports athletes, which it will impact them, all these people are on the front end of how live events and travel and team play and home fans and all this impacts them. And so, they're kind of the trailblazers for it. And I think that they should get a lot of respect for that.
Absolutely. I actually walked up to the there was I forget their name, but it's so we have the Fahrenheit group, which is the Dallas Fuel fan group, if you will. The Outlaws had one as well, and I actually met them up in the crowd, and apparently they were busing.
Yeah.
They just had like a convoy of buses, like they were just shipping fans up here from Houston. So they definitely showed up for their team. It was very cool to see. It was a little scary because I was in the back behind stage, and the first chant I heard was "Let's go Outlaws," and I kind of had this gas moment, like, "What is going on right now?" And then it was "Let's go Dallas," and then it was just a kind of a battle back and forth. And that was just one of the coolest moments.
Speaking of the fan group, so I mean that was a huge part of the energy is having these dedicated groups of fans, being able to create these chants. And I've met a few of the Fahrenheit 214 guys. Not at our events, but I was at a FC Dallas game, and they're part of their fan group. And so seeing our event, I've been to quite a few FC Dallas games this season, and they're the ones doing those chants at their games, and they're repurposing the soccer chants for our team in the arena. And I was like, oh man, I know these, but not from our games. So it's really awesome that they're taking because we're both Dallas teams, and it's really easy to repurpose them.
Yeah.
And they know them. And I was literally in the kind of that fan section behind them watching the game for a minute, and they're there. I mean, it was two guys, and they're just starting to shout this thing, and you just see it like infect everybody around them. And then it became the whole section, and then you can hear it across the whole arena. And I was just like, man, that's what this needs to be, and this is why like home game events are going to be awesome.
Yeah, it was really intense, and when people do that, when those fans start that, it gives everyone kind of an opportunity to join in, and so it's and by chanting or singing, like if you go to if you see an English Premier Soccer team and the fans are singing their team songs and things like that. There's something, we can have another study project on this. That's why churches start off with singing, right? Is that they start off with songs and music to get people singing, because it essentially opens you up to the experience, right? And it connects you to the experience. And so those fans are doing every fan a big service of kind of getting them to kind of connect emotionally to the event and join together. And there's a really powerful dynamic that happens when it happens, especially if there's opposing team fans there too. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've noticed since I've been involved in this is that all the fans I see in esports seem really smart and really nice. And so I think it's, when we get into the, what's appropriate behavior and things like that, I think that, cheering and yelling and reacting, even if it's with a boo. I think all those things are fine. I think when it turns into being really mean spirited, then that's not good. That's not something we should want or stimulate. But I think the natural kind of drama that is created by the ups and downs of the game, we want the fans to connect with that emotionally.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm a fan of the general heckling of a team, whether it's boos and things like that. But when it gets to a personal level, like individual players or things like that, or directly at the fans, that's when I absolutely do not appreciate, is when another fan group attacks the fans or a team attacks the fans. Like, that's the thing. That's a no-no in my opinion. You can boo the organization, you can boo the team as a whole. You can have a few memes here about the players, but not to be, mean-spirited. That's kind of where I draw the line.
Because their parents are like in the crowd sitting right next to you while this person's like berating this person on stage. And like,
also because they're putting themselves out there. I mean, they're in this very intense competition, and frankly, sports. It's like right now the big debate in the NBA about the players and the referees, and mistakes are made, and things like that. And in that sort of intense competition, there are going to be differences of opinions and mistakes and things like that. But they're in, Teddy Roosevelt say, the man in the arena. They're in there doing it. And so there's a credit they get for being in this intense competition and have everyone, focused on it. And so they need to get some leeway for putting themselves in that kind of risky position. And because they have to deal with the after effects of winning or losing, or their performance, or how they work together as a team, or whatever. And so I think that they have to get some credit for that.
Our MVCOT team got a real taste of some hostility over in CWL London this weekend. That was an interesting crowd. I don't know if you guys caught any of the games or anything, but it was soccer chants. I think there was Aches is a wanker chant at one point. I was like, geez, man. Like these, and we're over here like talking about booing. Like, I don't know if I want to go over there just yet, but great event. Seemed like a great turnout. Our guys finished, I want to say
Top four.
Producer says top four. Yeah, we'll take that. Definitely not what we wanted, but it's a good showing, and it shows that the team is growing. It's good.
And also, we have a fairly new team right now too, so that they're learning, and
we got Decimate back. Decimate played really well. So I've always been curious, how do you explain when you're in a room full of potential like executive level people, generally more, I won't say old, I'll say seasoned individuals, and you have to explain to them what it is we do, what it is that you do, and how you want them involved. Like, what's your elevator pitch? How do you describe it in a way that they'll understand?
Well, first of all, whenever we're saying meetings, we ask them to bring their 12-year-old children with them.
Smart.
Because we want someone who's nodding along who understands what we're talking about.
That's right? The translator.
Yeah, so please bring your small children. We try to pick, go to work with your parent day to do all of our pitches. So that's step one. So, esports has gotten a lot of publicity, especially in the business trade, sports business trade. And so most of them are aware to some degree of what's happening, and also in their core businesses, they are sometimes painfully aware of their the challenges in reaching, the kind of young millennial audience and Gen Z, and that they know that consumption trends, advertising trends, things like that are really changing quickly. And technology has been obviously a huge disruptor in the tradition of sports viewership, engagement, and advertising models. So they're already aware of their need to connect with people in a different way than they have been doing with their core fan base that's built their companies. So we don't have to explain too much other than the organizational model that we were just kind of talking about is probably really more like college sports, to where you have, like I went to Oklahoma State University, so you have a college football team, women's tennis, women's soccer, men's baseball, whatever, and they all play under one heading, except there they all, had the same name. They're the Cowboys or the Cowgirls. And here you have our organization, but you have different names for different teams, and increasingly you're seeing unique names instead of just Team NV, Call of Duty, Team NV, Counter-Strike, things like that. So in describing our organization to people, it's a little bit different than a traditional NBA organization or NHL organization. But when they start thinking about the audience and how powerful it is, especially with males 18 to 34, they're all ears at that point, right? And then there's been a lot of research done, both on the Overwatch League side and with our organization. And when it shows kind of the level of engagement that people have with it, then people pretty easily can understand why it's such a powerful potential tool for them. And then the question is just, how do we get started and what do we do?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say something. No, that's really interesting. I'm wondering if they are like right off the bat, they get it. Like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, it's just video games. Like
then how do you explain it to your mom or your dad or your uncle or
up until Homestand Weekend, they thought I either played video games or I made video games. They did not understand it at all. So it was cool for them to see like what it actually is. And I'm just the social media guy, but now you see like what's going on.
Yeah.
These are pro athletes. They train just as hard as, any other athlete. And
I think this event, like, to your point,
kind of things.
Homestand Weekend Dallas is probably the best example now of what it means to be an esports organization and what it looks like for the future of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, not just for us, but for Overwatch League, for any new league coming, any league, period. Like, we kind of set the standard now, and that's a good thing. Can we rinse and repeat?
I think it's repeatable. It definitely had kind of like a WWE, like take the show on the road kind of feel. Like I could see that just happening a lot, and so we'll test it out with the future.
There are a lot of interesting models, and you mentioned WWE. There's PGA golf tournaments that travel around, tennis, things like that, and then there's just strict home sports. Where if you want to go see the Mavericks, you've got 41 regular season chances, and you know what they are. And so I think with esports, it just has to find its and an esports group together is not fair. I mean, each league has to find its way. I mean, Overwatch is a global league, and League of Legends is split into regional, divisions, or regional leagues. So the way one behaves might be different than another, right? So I think it just has to find its kind of authentic best self, and if that's and it might be a combination of traditional home games and festival weekends. But I don't think it. It obviously needs to be. There needs to be some urgency because we're going to start playing. If in February of 2020, and we have a lot of work to do before that. I think we had 5 months to decide on this event and plan it, and we needed every day of it. Probably could have used another week of it. So we're kind of now entering a similar timeline for 2020 that we have to. We have to determine our calendar. We have to figure out our venues. We have to, determine ticket pricing and product structures,
where we're
marketing campaigns, all these different things. And there's a lot of work to do. And then we also need to give the fans time to respond to that and buy tickets. And so when we start, if we have a home game in early, February, then you need to be probably out in the marketplace 5 or 6 months before that with tickets on sale in a well thought out manner, because you have to let time, be your friend when you're selling these events.
I think that's a thing. In talking with a lot of people that were either at Homestand Weekend or talking to people after the fact and seeing kind of what it was seeing the news articles, seeing all the different coverage, social media wise, and trying to explain to them that they're like, well, what, are you guys going to do this every week? And it's like, That's a tough thing to kind of talk about because we don't know what it really is going to look like next year still.
That's right. And I think that the Homestand Weekend itself will have a big impact on the way the league thinks and feels about it, and the other 19 teams in the league look at it. So there's discussions that are happening now, and the reason the event was created was to test and learn. You learn by doing, right? So what we talked about earlier with your role as the event host, really with no formal training in that area other than making you and Justin get up and do the watch parties.
Baptism by blue fire.
And Justin would have been with you on stage had Justin not had an all-encompassing job running the entire event too, right? So, so you're welcome to do that. So I'm sorry you took away your running buddy there, but he was otherwise engaged. But now we have to do the same thing for 2020, and I think you're right. I think it's being created as we speak, and people will learn by doing. And of the 20 different teams in Overwatch, you'll probably have a good 5 or 6 different types of venues that they play in with different capacities and different setups, and maybe more than that. And so then it's going to be just this this really learning experience and kind of adaptation and evolution. Because when people look at the National Hockey League or the NBA, the National Hockey League has literally been around for 100 years, right? The NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, they have been around for 50, 70 years. And so esports or Overwatch particularly, and now Call of Duty, they're going from 0 to 100 miles an hour very quickly. So it's unfair to think that there won't be some bumps in the road or audibles or things like that happen. It's also a global league with Overwatch, which has never been done before. So there's these little things like, oh yeah, you've got to go play 5 games in Asia. So that's more than you do in an afternoon. It's a big commitment. And so there's a lot of things to be worked out. And we have a really good group on our side. The league has a really strong group, and I think together we'll figure this out.
So just for people listening or watching who don't really know the details of Overwatch League for 2020, can you go over what is expected right now that is public knowledge?
Well, there's been some information shared about, that Overwatch wants all the 20 teams to play in their home markets in 2020. And that they're still rolling out with a 28 game season, and that I think it's a 20 with playoffs, maybe a 30-week schedule. So you have an all-star a week, and you've got a couple weeks in playoffs at the end. And other than that, I think the rest of it's still kind of a work in process. Because there's a lot of logistics with broadcasting it and holding the events, traveling the teams and the players. But if you just do the math and you have, 28 games over really 26 team playable weekends, because you take away the playoffs and take away the All-Star weekend, then essentially you've got probably, 7 weeks you're playing 2 games, 14 weeks you're playing 1 game, and 5 weeks you're off, something like that. And so it's still, a fairly intense schedule for the players when you add the travel in with that. If they're all just playing out of the Blizzard Arena, then that schedule wouldn't be too harsh. So this year is probably the lightest schedule on impact on the players that we'll ever have. Yeah. And so anyway, so that's essentially, those are kind of the building blocks that we're, the rest of it's being placed on top of. And so I think it's going to be fantastic. There's going to be, and we'll get the results of our post-event survey, and we'll share some of it socially with the fan base, just because I think it's a fun thing for everyone to kind of they know themselves, they know their friends, but seeing the bigger picture is interesting. But 77% of the tickets were sold inside the state of Texas. 63% of the total were sold inside the Metroplex. So there's a lot of people coming in from outside of Texas and outside the Metroplex to attend the event. Obviously, that gap between 63 and 77, a lot of that was kind of Houston fans, but there are also people who are just fans of the game itself and fans of the league itself. And not too many people identify themselves as coming to the event because of a single player. They're mainly the game, the league, or a team in the event. And so I think for us, the really good news there is that there's a lot of fan creation and winning fans that is possible for us in the near future, right? So like when you went to a Stars game in 1993, you saw a lot of jerseys of other teams represented at those events. And then now when you go to a game, you see almost all Dallas Stars jerseys. Well, a lot of those fans start out as, primarily liking the Maple Leafs or the Bruins or the Red Wings or the Rangers. But then over time, they came to love the one they're near. And I think from our standpoint, there's 350,000 people that play Overwatch in our home market area. So if all of them convert to fuel fans and all of them want to come to our home games, our facility will be really large. So, so we just hope that happens. We hope we have to build the first 350,000 seat stadium. Can you imagine the lines to the restroom at that stadium?
I cannot at all. But you know, the cool thing that comes with that is more job opportunities, because that's something that our fans are always interested in. Like, how do I be a part of your world?
Yeah.
And, so leave our guys with some advice. Our listeners, our viewers, what is your advice? I always tell them, be good with people and, you know, put yourself in a position for good things to happen. I don't believe in luck, but I believe in making your own luck. And that happens by applying yourself and saying, yes. What advice can you leave somebody who aspires to work in this industry?
There's two things. You know, in pro football, when they talk about a player, they say your availability is your greatest ability, right? So part of it is making yourself available to the organization. The second thing is that there's no one that we have working here that does not bring a skill to our organization that we need. You know, I mean, about 1,000 years ago, the division of labor is what allowed, you know, human culture to become dominant on Earth 2,000, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. But division of labor, people doing what they're good at and contributing to a community with that skill. And so organizations are no different, that we need, you know, cameramen and people that know lighting and people know editing, people that know social media, putting on events. We have a CFO, we have, you know, all these different people. All of them have developed a skill, and then they can contribute that to the group. And then the other thing I would say is that, you know, being a fan, or, you know, like we have people that work for us at events, you know, we scale up as we have big events. So reaching out saying, hey, I'd like to, you know, volunteer may be the wrong word, is, you know, since we, you know, pay people to work at events, but we have a lot of things we do to where the organization temporarily expands in order to put that on. And so I'd say just reach out and say, hey, listen, I'm available and I'd like to help. And then, because then as you interact with our staff and they get to know you and get to know what you're good at, then when something does pop up as an opportunity, they can say, you know, I know a person who can do that, and we should talk to them about this, right? And so that kind of networking and differentiation is important, right? Because then you want the chance to show that the skill you have and you can work and play well with other adults, you know, and fans is important.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. We, just to give you guys kind of an insight as to the staff we did ramp up for this event, we probably got about 20 additional people to help with brand activations and, you know, logistics on the back end, from PAs that ran around with Jay to help.
My bodyguards.
Yeah. Yep. To people helping, you know, our registration table for our check-in for, you know, the Grandmaster upgrades, which was a lot of those people, to helping us with the after party at the Marriott and doing all that kind of stuff. Or we even actually hired a person to do makeup for us, who, you know, I've worked with in the past. I knew that she had those skills, and she had the understanding of she's not maybe a huge esports fan, but she knew what it was, knew what the type of people she'd be working around, and I was comfortable putting her in that space with our players to know that she's capable to make that happen, and
with no esports experience.
Yeah,
there you go.
So there's a lot of things you can do. Be good at whatever it is you do, and then find a way to make that valuable to an esports organization.
Amen.
Easy as pie.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions before we get out of here. Okay. You got time?
Yeah, sure.
Alrighty. First and foremost, what was the first console you had, system you had? I'm trying to profile you here.
Whatever it is we played Pong on.
Atari?
Yeah.
The Atari.
That was a painful game.
Best rock band of all time?
Well, the first concert I ever saw was Van Halen.
Wait, let me make sure you're not asking like which version of the game Rock Band was the best of all time. You're asking actual
playing instruments, not the plastic.
Rock Band 3.
You know, I'm good at that.
Well,
Van Halen?
Watching Eddie Van Halen play the guitar in that first concert was a pretty formative experience for me. I was pretty stunned that a human being could do that.
That's legendary. I saw Who did I see? Prince.
Prince
I saw
is
live before.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I kid you not. This dude had on like 5-inch high heels and jumped on top of a white piano, and I was like, "Who? This legend instantly." Legend.
Yes.
Our NASCAR drivers, athletes.
They are. What they go through during a race is would melt a normal person, and their reactions. When they're racing at a couple 100 miles an hour, inches away from people, and the result of them not being inches away from people is potential death for 20 people. Like, they're absolutely an athlete.
First job you ever had?
It was probably working at my dad's hotel. So he would throw me in the open top dumpster so I could jump up and down on the garbage to try to delay him having to have someone pick
Sweet
up the
gig.
open top dumpster. So that's one of the first memories I have of working, and I didn't love it. So that's why stay in school, kids. Stay in school.
Right on, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us.
Yeah.
Your time is definitely valuable. Now get back to work.
Yeah, amen.
But yeah, we have some church announcements before we get out of here. What we got?
So we've got the stage 2 playoffs.
Oh yeah,
happening for the Dallas Fuel.
The
this
rematch.
Friday. Against Vancouver Titans.
Yikes.
This Friday at 10 p.m. So we're looking at figuring out something we can do for that. Well, maybe working with our fan group at Fahrenheit 214. We'll see what's up.
Yep.
Those last
some
minute
watch
thing.
party details might come out. So yeah, stay tuned. Big congrats to Envy's Lenane for making it to the Fortnite World Cup. That's awesome. Sketch and Colin are still in the hunt, so definitely follow those guys and make sure you support them and give them lots of love. MVCOD just finished up, as we talked about, top 4 finish, so shout out to them guys. Pharaoh and Decimate joining the squad. Decimate's a return member, so it's cool to have him back. They'll be heading to Columbus to continue their Pro League run later this month, so definitely check that out.
If you guys haven't seen yet, we did upload a Homestand Weekend recap video. Check that out on the Dallas Fuel YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dallas Fuel.
You know what sucks? I'm not in it.
I didn't make it
anywhere. I didn't make the cut. Are you in the cut?
I hope not.
I'm not in it either. So it's about the fans, man. It's about the fans.
It's all for you
guys.
guys.
Yeah.
It's all for you, man.
A lot of fans in there. There's so many. This is a thing. If you guys were there, look at all the news articles, look at all the interviews, look at all that stuff. There's so many of our like recurring fans in these that are like nationally viewed. It's pretty awesome to see them.
And the On the Watch comes out today. Producer
Today?
Mike's giving me the nod. On the Watch comes out today, so definitely check that out. Our MV Overwatch Contenders team is still undefeated. Woo. Currently the best in NA West. I think Arrow went on record to say they're probably better than a couple teams in the Overwatch League. Maybe. Spicy.
Yeah.
Hot takes. And lastly, make sure you join the Envy Discord. That's discord.gg/Envy. We have the Queue Up channel where you can talk with other fans, request future guests, and tell us what you thought. Leave us a review if you're listening on, iTunes, Apple Play. Definitely leave us a review. That helps us reach you and more.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to click that subscribe button, turn on notifications by clicking the little bell, and leave us a comment down below.
Sweet. Until next time, this has been Queue Up.